Hello and welcome to From Digital to D&D. In this series, some random guy on the internet tries to take a character from fiction and attempts to turn them into a usable stat block for you to use in your games of Dungeons & Dragons. For those of you unaware, each episode of this series will be broken down into the following sections. The character introduction, where I attempt to explain the background of the character. The feature breakdown, where I point out what aspects of the character I'll be attempting to convert. The stat block, where I show off the monster sheet and explain how it works and how to use it. And finally, the plot hooks, where I explain possible uses for the character in your games of D&D. Naturally, any character that features in this series belongs to their respective owners. Today, we're going to dive down below to the rings of hell within the Helliverse created by MissZyia. We're going to look at the scourge of the airwaves, the strawberry pimp, Alastor, the radio demon.
Let's begin. I'm gonna make you wish that I'd stayed gone. Tune on in when I'm done. Your status quo will know its race is run. Oh, this will be fun.
Alastor is one of the primary protagonists of Hazbin Hotel. He was once a human in New Orleans whose misdeeds saw him dragged down to hell when he died. Said misdeeds included, but were not limited to, murder, as Alastor was a serial killer, though by day he was a radio show host. Upon his manifestation in hell, Alastor began to climb the ladder of hell's hierarchy until he became an overlord. Alastor is a special case of overlord due to how powerful he is, possessing powers beyond a normal mortal soul that just manifested in hell. With this power, Alastor toppled ancient overlords who stood unchallenged and tore their souls apart before playing them in his radio broadcasts. The one spared from Alastor's wrath were those who struck a deal with him, the radio demon having a strong penchant for deals. With his reputation sealed, most stayed out of Alastor's way, as only beings of comparable power like other overlords can hope to stand against Alastor. Whilst his exact goings are unknown, it is known that he seemingly vanished from hell for 7 years before returning. Upon his return, he aligned himself with the Princess of Hell to help in her redemption project, though nobody knows why. All that is certain is that the radio demon is back, and still as dangerous as ever. As an overlord, Alastor commands great power. As his title would suggest, he has a strong motif with radio, but so far, Alastor has demonstrated an array of powers. The one he shares with other sinners like himself is that he is immortal and nigh invulnerable. Sinners cannot be killed by regular means, piecing themselves back together from any harm over time. The only known things to permanently kill a sinner are the angelic weaponry of the exorcists from heaven, or other beings of comparable power who could damage souls like other overlords. As for some of his abilities, Alastor can alter his appearance at will, able to grow his horns, change his eyes to radio dials, alter his body proportions, and more. He can cause sounds associated with radio like static or canned laughter to be heard from thin air, as his own voice sounds like it's being played through a radio. It appears Alastor has control over these aspects, but they may be more subconscious than active effects. He has shown the ability to teleport short distances, or more accurately, he's shown the ability to dissolve into shadow and then reform elsewhere. Given being an overlord requires ownership of souls, Alastor has many beings under his thumb. He summons shadowy creatures with a snap of his fingers who do his bidding without question. Alastor is not a physical fighter, but commands great magical power. So far, his preferred method of combat is to summon tentacles made of shadow, which he sends out to slam or grapple targets. Whilst these tentacles can be destroyed, they also seem easy to reform, and are strong enough to rip a blimp out of the air. Alastor does have one weakness, and that is his cane. During his fight with Adam, The cane was cut in half and Alastor seemingly lost access to most of his abilities. If he had not made a quick escape, the cane's destruction may have cost him his life. Alastor's proficiency with shadow magic is what saved his life, as he can dissolve his form into his own shadow, which is also able to animate itself. Whilst Alastor may not be able to take much of a hit, actually striking him is very difficult for most beings. Some other notable abilities Alastor has shown include making a near-perpetual dome of shadow, altering the clothing of himself and others, and having a wonderful singing voice. Though doing so is highly risky, Alastor makes a powerful ally. I liked Alastor from the moment I first saw him in the Hazbin Hotel pilot, and with his resurgence in the recent series, I felt like I had to make him a sheet. And here it is. Given we have only so much of Alastor, it was hard to establish what he can or cannot do, especially since he has yet to show off all he can do. Feel free to check out the sheet at your own pace, but, like usual, I'll run through each part and help explain how it works. Alastor is a medium fiend with the devil and shape-changer subtypes. You might ask why he's labelled as a devil when he's called the radio demon, but if you look at what Alastor is from a D&D perspective, he's a devil. Most devils in D&D were once mortal souls who went to the Nine Hells and became devils. Alastor's no different. As for the shape-changer subtype, Alastor has shown the ability to change his form at will. The shape-changer subtype is special as it means Alastor is actually immune to the polymorph spell, which I think is fitting. Moving on to his alignment, Alastor is lawful evil and a good example of it in my eyes. As described by Vivzipop herself, Alastor did not just go after anyone and highlighted that he has a weird moral code. That was in reference to his killings as a human, but I think it's fair to say that it applies to Alastor as a whole. Dealmakers like him are usually lawful evil, as they hold themselves to the letter, but delight in suffering. Alastor has an armor class of 20, which comes from his disarming charm, which I'll explain shortly. He has an average of 118 hit points, which comes from his 19d8 hit dice and plus 33 constitution bonus. When I read the rest of the sheet out, the average health might seem low, but it was hard to pass up the chance to make it the year of his death in 1933. Besides, I think his low health makes up for how dangerous he is. As Alastor himself put it, he escaped death by a hair from just one attack by Adam. Alastor has a walk speed of 30 feet and the following stats: 10 strength, 15 dexterity, 16 constitution, 18 intelligence, 20 wisdom, and 26 charisma. He has a plus 7 to dexterity saving throws, plus 9 to intelligence saving throws, plus 10 to wisdom saving throws, and plus 13 to charisma saving throws. Alastor also has plus 13 to deception checks, plus 13 to intimidation checks, plus 10 to perception checks, plus 13 to performance checks, and plus 7 to stealth checks. As a devil, Alastor has resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks that aren't silvered. As for damage immunities, Alastor is immune to fire and poison damage. He is also immune to being poisoned. Alastor has dark vision up to 120 feet and a passive perception of 20. Moving on to languages, Alastor knows Common and Infernal. As an Overlord, Alastor sits at a challenge rating of 16. Alastor's first trait is Devil's Sight, which lets him see through magical darkness with his dark vision. His next trait is Disarming Charm, and whilst Alastor isn't wearing armour, he can add his Charisma modifier to his AC. Face for Radio is a special trait, as it kicks in when someone tries to look at Alastor through a form of divination such as Arcane Eye or Scrying. If the creature looks at Alastor this way, it needs to make a DC 19 Wisdom saving throw or take 2d6 psychic damage and have the spell end. On a success, the spell works as normal, but Alastor appears distorted the whole time. As he said himself,
I wouldn't try that, my dear. This face was made for radio.
Fear Aura forces any creature hostile to Alastor to make a DC 19 Wisdom saving throw if it starts its turn within 60 feet of Alastor, unless Alastor is incapacitated. If the creature fails, it is frightened of Alastor until the start of its next turn. If the creature succeeds, it is immune to this trait for 24 hours. Next up is a Mortal Sinner, which states that unless Alastor is slain by a holy weapon or by radiant damage, he reappears 1d10 days later. Magic Resistance grants Alastor advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Alastor's next trait is Shadow Tentacles. This trait states that Alastor can have up to 4 tentacles active at a time. Each tentacle can be attacked and has an AC of 19, 10 HP, immunity to poison, psychic and necrotic damage, and vulnerability to radiant damage. The vulnerability comes from how a divine being like Adam was able to effortlessly cut through them. A tentacle could also be destroyed with a DC 19 strength check, and destroying them doesn't hurt Alastor, who can make replacements during his turn. Alastor's final trait is Spellcasting, which uses Alastor's Charisma, which gives his spells a save DC of 19 and grants him the following spells. At will, he can cast Alter Self, Enlarge/Reduce, though only on himself, Major Image, Prestidigitation, and Thaumaturgy. He can cast Bestow Curse, Summon Greater Demon, and Summon Lesser Demon 3 times a day each. Finally, he can cast Seeming, Summon Fiend, and Teleport once a day each. Next up are his actions, and Alastor's first action is Multi-Attack. This action lets Alastor make 4 Shadow Tentacle attacks and swap each one out with Crush or Fling. Speaking of Shadow Tentacle, it is a melee spell attack. That means it's a magical attack, by the way. It has a plus 13 to hit, a reach of 60 feet, and can be made against one target. On a hit, it deals 2d12 plus 8 force damage, though Alastor can choose to do no damage and instead grapple the target. Whilst the target is grappled this way, it is also restrained. Alastor can only have 4 of these tentacles active at a time, and each one can grapple one target each. However, a tentacle that is grappling a target can only attack the target it is grappling with. Crush is Alastor's next action, and it forces one target grappled by Alastor to make a DC 19 strength saving throw or take 6d12 force damage on a failure. This is an action that could be very dangerous, but it does come with the risk of doing nothing and can only be used on the target once per round. Next up is Fling. This action targets one huge or smaller object or creature grappled by Alastor and throws them 60 feet in a direction Alastor chooses. The creature lands prone, and if it hits a solid surface, it takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage per 10 feet thrown. If the creature is thrown into another creature, the other creature has to make the DC 19 strength dexterity saving throw or take the same damage and be not prone. Alastor's final action is Shape Change, which lets him magically polymorph himself into a medium mass of shadow or his true form. Whilst a shadowy mass, Alastor cannot speak, manipulate objects, or take any action besides this one. He's weightless and has a walking/climb speed of 60 feet, which he can go upside down without any checks. The mass can enter another creature's space and move through gaps that air can pass through. He's also immune to all non-magical damage in this form. We see Alastor dissolve into shadow many times, and he's shown to be much faster in this form as he races along surfaces. Moving to bonus actions, Alastor has Shadow Stealth. Whilst he is in dim light or darkness, Alastor can turn invisible. He can stay invisible as long as he doesn't attack anyone, enter bright light, or lose concentration on it. His equipment also turns invisible with him. Alastor's next bonus action is Shadow Step. This lets Alastor teleport up to 60 feet, along with his equipment, to an unoccupied space he can see. Finally, we come to reactions, and Alastor has one, Parry. This lets Alastor add +5 to his AC against a melee or ranged attack against him that would hit him, raising his AC to 25 against the attack. Alastor can only use this if he can see the attack and has a free Shadow Tentacle, meaning an active one, not grappling with something. That's the end of the sheet, but there's one more thing to cover before we move on. As a powerful devil and deal maker, Alastor could have followers or servants at any time. If you want to use someone who follows Alastor, you could give them a special trait like you can with other powerful fiends. Beings who follow Alastor might be given the Dressed with a Smile trait. This trait gives the creature advantage on deception and persuasion check. But who would follow Alastor? Alastor fits in very nicely in terms of a D&D game, as he can function as a unique type of devil in the Hells. He's like other D&D devils in that he likes to make deals, seeks more power, and is very powerful. The only thing that might stop Alastor from going into a classic D&D setting is his radio motif. Radio is a big part of who Alastor is, but I imagine most settings don't have a radio in it. If you could get past that though, there's nothing really stopping you. Throw Alastor into the city of Dis and he'd fit right in. You could have him serve as the patron of a warlock or maybe a rival to the patron. Alastor is highly ambitious and his quest for power has made him plenty of enemies, and the party can be one of them. Perhaps Alastor desires something the party also wants, and it becomes a game of ownership. Words are Alastor's go-to first, and usually he doesn't attack unless provoked in some way. If the party is low level, a cult might be worshipping Alastor as he tries to spread his influence, and over time the party could tender with Alastor himself. Maybe the party are in the Hells on an unrelated task but bump into Alastor, where he could serve as a useful ally, though his help comes with a price. Look at Raphael or Bizora from Baldur's Gate 3 for a good example of what a charismatic devil can do. With a 26 charisma, few beings are as charismatic as with words as Alastor. The only person we see besting verbally is Lucifer himself. And as we can see in the final episode, Alastor has plans to become the puppet master after he frees himself. Just remember that Alastor always wears a smile on his face and a song in his heart. But with that, we've reached the end of today's video. Before you head off, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you managed to get something out of this. The stat block for Alastor is available on D&D Beyond for free, and the link to it is in the description. I hope you all have a great day and may your dice roll favourably. Goodbye for now.